One day my husband came home from work, and without any words, he took a piece of paper from his bag and said to,
I want a divorce right away. I don't enjoy being with you, and we can't have any children.
the paper seems to be a divorce paper. He was waving it in front of me. I'm sure he's trying to threaten me. He seems to think that if he goes this far, I will return to being an obedient W again. Well, I'm not going to play that game, and this is a good thing for me.
Here are the divorce paper.
I snatched the divorce paper from my husband, got a pen, and began to fill it out.
What?
My name is Mary, a 32-year-old housewife. I got married a year ago to a man named Ken. Before I got married, I was working for a company and was a career woman. But my husband told me that when we married, he wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife. So I decided to leave the company and become one. C could have still worked. But I loved my husband so much at the time that I wanted to do everything possible to help him as much as I could. I also wanted to experience being a full-time housewife for once, so I didn't have a problem with the idea of being a stay-at-home wife. However, once we started our married life, problems arose in other areas. Firstly, my husband was selfish. He does not cook at all, but he often makes demands about the taste of the food.
Is this vegetable cooked? It's raw.
It's cooked well. It tastes better when it's crispy like this.
I don't like it like this. I like it cooked more.
Additionally,
Wow, it's spicy. I'm sweating. How much spicy stuff did you put?
I only put in about half a teaspoon of spicy sauce.
She can't eat anything.
My husband complained and poured mayonnaise on the food to cover up the taste of the original food. There are many episodes like this related to cooking alone, but there is something else that bothers me about my husband. He spends too much money on his hobby and interests. My husband loves fashion and buys expensive brands. I'm not that interested in fashion, so I'm fine with clothes that are less than 100. But my husband's health insurance is several $100s a month. Whether it's a t-shirt or a hat, he always buys something in the range of hundreds. When I ask him to spend a little less, he refuses to listen to me, saying, "It's my money, so it's fine." So I have to save as much as I can, and it's really hard. And when I tried to cut back on food cost and serve fewer dishes, he immediately noticed and started complaining about it. He doesn't do any of the housework because he isn't capable of it either, but he's just so picky in that way. My mother-in-law was also a nuisance, but not as much as my husband. My husband takes me to his mother-in-law's house twice a month, but I always feel like a failure. It told him I wasn't particularly eager about it, but he said something if his wife didn't come, he would force me to go with him. And then my mother-in-law, as if she had been waiting for me, starts to snipe at me.
Mary, what is this? It doesn't taste like anything.
What? But if you add salt to it, it will be too salty.
Are you trying to say that I can't properly taste?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Ken grew up with my taste. You should learn to season it the way he likes it. Why did he marry this woman at all?
I used to get a stomach ache when I went to my in-laws' house because of the bad things they would say about me every time. But as usual, my husband wouldn't listen to me, and he would take me to my in-laws' house whether I was sick or not. And my mother-in-law would ask me every chance she got, "How about the grandchildren?" I can understand why my mother-in-law would be impatient since my husband and I are both in our 30s. But we had just gotten married. I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I haven't done many couple activities with my husband since we got married. He comes home late, and even if he comes home early, he says he's too tired to do anything with me. That's why we've hardly been able to procreate. When I honestly told him that I didn't want my mother-in-law to bother me, He said she was just messing with me and that I didn't have to take it seriously. It was as if he didn't care about how I felt. I was losing my impatience. My mother-in-law was constantly troubling me, and my husband was not receptive to my feelings. So one day I decided to have a talk with my husband. Hey, can I ask you to pay a little more attention to me? I told him about your mother-in-law, but you didn't listen to me at all. Besides, we're not active at night.
Oh, that again? You know, you and Mom. That's your problem, right? You've got to make it your own. And I think you're being too aggressive about the activity at night.
Huh?
I never knew women in their 30s are sexually active.
You suck.
Huh. Did you say something?
You really suck that you say such a thing.
You're the one who's been fed by me. And why are you being so cocky? All you have to do is listen to me and do what I tell you to do. Don't bother me with your petty problems.
I couldn't believe my ears. Was this really the words of the husband who married me? Before we were married, he used to be much more kind and more killing towards me. He apparently thinks that I will do whatever he says. Maybe it's because when we got married, he wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife and accepted it without complaint. He must have thought I was submissive. After I realized this, my feelings for my husband instantly cooled off. Until now, even if he treated me a little unreasonably, I had forgiven him because I loved my husband. But now that I realize that, he thinks of me as his housekeeper. It was difficult for me to maintain my feelings of love towards him. From that day on, I stopped listening to him. I no longer did what he told me to do. I cooked what I wanted to cook, and now I wanted to cook it. I never went to my in-laws' house because he didn't feel like it. As expected, he lost his temper every time.
Hey, why don't you do as you're told? You're a stay-at-home wife. So do it. Hey, listen to me.
I responded only when my husband speaks to me in a normal way. But when he was being unreasonable, I decided to ignore him. My husband didn't expect me to behave that way. He gradually began to be careful with how he was with me, and then he didn't say anything to me about a month. He finally reached his limit. One day, my husband came home from work, and without saying a word, he took out a piece of paper from his bag and said to me,
I want a divorce right away. I don't enjoy being with you, and we can't have any more children.
The paper appeared to be a divorce petition. He was waving it in front of me. The husband's part was already filled out. My husband was telling me he wanted a divorce, but for some reason, he had a grin on his face. I'm sure he's just trying to threaten me. He seems to think that if he goes this far, I'll become an obedient wife again. But I'm not going to play that game, and this is good for me. What? Fine, give me the divorce paper. S snatched the divorce paper from my husband, got a pen, and began to fill it. He didn't expect me to stop filling it out and was clearly upset. Ignored his reaction and hastily filled out the divorce papers.
Oh, are you serious?
Well, I was thinking of getting a divorce too.
You're kidding, right?
Why? After all the horrible things you did to me, how could I possibly want to stay married to you? What do you mean by that? That I'm your maid who does everything you tell me to do?
Oh, no.
Well, it looks like I was right. You are such an asshole. I don't know why I married a guy like you.
Shut up! You aren't a good enough housewife. That's a fact.
You can say what you want. I recorded every horrible thing you said to me. I file a suit against you for moral harassment.
Oh, no.
My husband turned pale and fell into a heap.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. What am I going to do when without you?
My husband started to cry, and I was shocked. The moment I try to be tough with him, one ebb, he turns into a frightened puppy. How pretty he is! I packed up my belongings and left the house, ignoring my husband, who was clinging to me. I immediately filled the divorce paper and went back to my parents' house. By the way, I had been secretly looking for a job for about a month before this divorce happened. And just when I found a company that would fire me as a full-time employee, my husband brought me the divorce paper. The timing was perfect. I found a job, so I stayed at my parents' house for a few days and then moved out. And I went through the division of property and the compensation for the mile harassment formery, thus, with my lawyer. My ex-husband kept telling my lawyer that he wanted to see me get a restraining order just in case. It seems that I was right in my decision. My ex-husband came to my parents' house one day and asked where I was. As a result, my mother reported the incident and my ex-husband was arrested. He was released, but he was freed from his job because of it. He now lives at his in-laws' house and locks himself up there. I heard that my ex-husband was in a miserable state because he was dumped by me, and there was no one left to handle the housework. His room was a mess, and he spent money without considering his future. He couldn't pay his rent and living expenses, and he was in panic. He realized how important I was and wanted me to come back to him. So he was desperate to find out where I was. I think it's pathetic that my husband didn't realize how blessed he was until he lost everything. At best, I hope he will reflect on this incident and improve his character. I, on the other hand, am I working hard at my new job? It seems that I'm more suited to life centered around work than being a housewife. So I have learned a lesson from my failure in this Molly age and find an independent man who can do his own housework the next time. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to the channel if you like. See you in the next video.